Hello everybody, RMJ Movie Reviews back again with my surprise movie review of the classic 1990 action picture Marked for Death, starring Steven Seagal. Skinny Steven Seagal, might I add. Wow, Marked for Death. This was one of the movies in the heyday Steven Seagal era, when Steven Seagal was a young dude, you know, in his mid-late 30s. He was skinny. He had just popped on the scene. I believe Marked for Death was actually his third picture at the time. His first picture was Above the Law, then it was Hard to Kill, and then I think it was Marked for Death and Out for Justice came out fourth. You know, me, like any other little kid or teenager at that time, you know, I was a gigantic Steven Seagal fan, you know, in his heyday. I remember renting Marked for Death. I think I rented Marked for Death from Blockbusters. This is like when Blockbusters was first coming out, you know, and Blockbusters had that big yellow and blue logo they used to have with the movie ticket thing. And I remember renting this from Blockbusters video store and just being blown away, because I remember when Steven Seagal first came out, I was in elementary school, and a buddy of mine named David Belcher, I don't know where he is. He went to Fairfax Elementary with me back in the 80s, in the early 90s. But I remember he kept talking about Hard to Kill, Hard to Kill. I didn't know what Hard to Kill was, because, you know, at that time it was Arnold and Stallone, and Van Damme had just come out too, you know, but they weren't named. Van Damme and Seagal weren't names yet. So he just kept talking about this guy, Seagal, Hard to Kill. I'm like, who is that? And I saw Hard to Kill when it came on HBO, and I was like, wow, this dude is serious. Because at that time, the whole Aikido thing that Seagal was doing, you know, bending people's limbs and snapping arms and using people's weight against them and throwing them against walls and stuff, that was brand new in action pictures in the late 80s and the early 90s. And Seagal, you know, in his younger day, he had such a cool and sleek presence to him, with the slick back black hair and the ponytail. I mean, it was just, his action pictures were really unique. Like, I mean, if younger generations who didn't grow up on them were to watch Steven Seagal movies now, I mean, they look like typical late 80s, early 90s action fluff. But really, there are some very inventive action set pieces in Marked for Death. And I think that's one of the cool things about, you know, like I was saying in the Die Hard reviews and the Lethal Weapon, is this air of hardcore, gritty action pictures. There was a uniqueness to the action back then, where, again, they let the camera sit there and they let the action speak for itself. And that just doesn't exist now. There's so much style now. But, okay, I'm kind of rambling. The story of Marked for Death is Steven Seagal is a DEA agent. He's a cowboy. He's a maverick, just like every other cop, cowboy, DEA, FBI agent, whatever your soldier you see in these movies. He does something really stupid. He gets his partner killed. So he decides that he's tired of fabricating evidence, sleeping with informants, and murdering suspects. And he decides to go back to Chicago and just chill with the family and not do drug enforcement agency stuff anymore, which is like fight crime. You know, he decides he don't want to do that anymore. He comes back to town and finds out that the Jamaican posse has taken over the drug trade in Chicago, and they're up against the Colombians and the Italians, and it turns out these guys are just deadly MFs. You don't want to mess with them. They leave cow tongues on doors. They slit naked women's throats. They're just badass Jamaicans with long dreads, and they talk in really bad Jamaican accents, and they just walk into places and machine gun fire everybody. And that's the story of Marked for Death. They shoot Steven Seagal's niece in the shoulder, so now he's really pissed. And they attempt to slit his sister's throat. That really makes him mad. And the whole movie is one big fight, and there you go. And again, one of the things I really liked about, I think Marked for Death is, I kind of like all his movies the same from that era, because, you know, Under Siege 2 was his last good one when he was skinny, and Glimmer Man was just like pitiful. I kind of like Glimmer Man, but it's still a pitiful movie. But Marked for Death, what I like about Marked for Death is that you really got the cool Jamaicans, because everybody who can't even remember the titles of Steven Seagal movies, you each know which one. All of us who grew up in that time, you know which one you're talking about. You go, what's the one with the Jamaicans? Marked for Death. What's the one where they killed his wife? Hard to Kill. What's the one where he was looking for Richie? Out for Justice. What's the one where he was on the battleship? Under Siege. What's the one where he was on the train? Under Siege 2. What's the one with the Eskimos? On Deadly Ground. You know what I mean? You all, everybody who grew up there knows Steven Seagal movies, man. So Marked for Death is the one with the Jamaicans and Screwface. And you've got this black actor, I can't remember his name. He's done tons of stuff. Black character actor, but he's got this really horrible fake Jamaican accent. And it just adds to the cheese, man. I mean, and also what I love about this is how, number one, the kills are extremely brutal and inventive. Again, something that's missing from action pictures nowadays. And even I'll say with Michael Bay pictures. Michael Bay can do the shootouts and the slow motion and all that, but what he's missing from this era is, number one, the tough guy talk. The tough guy talk one-liners. You can't beat the tough guy talk one-liners from this era. I love this sleazeball mafia guy who bailed one of the Jamaican killer guys out of jail, and he's sniffing coke. Of course, this is like an 80s, early 90s movie. He's sniffing coke off these two hookers, and Seagal, he says something to him, slams him into a mirror, and the guy goes, Hatcher, I wouldn't sell you to sweat off my balls. And then Seagal shoots him in the head, and I can't remember what he says. The bad guy says, I'm a made man, and Seagal shoots him in the head, and then he goes, God made man. You just cannot beat that. You cannot beat that kind of cheese. You know what I mean? A bad guy who's in a Speedo sniffing coke off two hookers. It's awesome, man. And then, you got the scene where, I just love it. All the bad guys, number one, they wear suits and they drive limos. That's how you know this is a late 80s, early 90s action picture. It's insane, man. And the inventive action sequence, because what you need to have for a fantastic action picture is gratuitous nudity, sexism, good one-liners, slimeball bad guys, drugs, good gun battles, good explosions, and good fist fights. And Marked for Death has them all. Steven Seagal dispatches these villains in the most creative way. He cuts off people's hands. He shoots people in the forehead. He smashes them in the head with a sledgehammer. He kicks one dude in his kneecap and snaps his leg. He stabs a guy in the throat. He bends his arm back and snaps at another guy. He crunches his arm that way. I mean, he's got like this gigantic truck, and he shoots out the front window of it. It's totally insane. He slams people through mirrors. One of my favorite scenes is the part where he's in this department store, and he's like, he's just destroying. Steven Seagal is invincible, man. He's like Wolverine or Superman. He like snaps arm. He's throwing people through the little glass thing that has the jewelry in it. He throws them through. Oh, and what I even love is there's one bad guy where Seagal has already broken his arm and is hanging off, and the dude is like trying to like get up while his arm is dangling, and then the brother Keith David comes over with the shotgun and just punches him in the face with the shotgun while his arm is dangling. It's like the guy's already suffering, but we had to rub it in and smack him across the face with the butt of a shotgun. I mean, this is insane. You cannot get away with this kind of action filmmaking done. I mean, it's so politically incorrect. I love it, man. And another good thing about Marked for Death is the music. The music is really good. They use a lot of, I don't want to know what they're called. Congas, chonkas, whatever. But the music in this movie is really good. And they use a lot of Jamaican artists that I've never even heard of before. But it's just good stuff, man. And and you can tell Seagal was never an actor. What they do for Seagal is they give him the most mundane, stupid lines. I mean, you have all these actors around him who are actually character actors who are just like, I don't want to be in this sorry Steven Seagal movie, but hey, I gotta feed my family. And they're like acting with passion in this like thin script. And Seagal will just walk into the room and be like, everything will be better. Yeah, and then it's like, it's just, I mean, Seagal, that's one of the reasons Seagal's career fell off. Not to mention, all the sexual harassment and kicking stuntmen in the balls and just having like a humongous ego, is that he didn't even try to become a better actor. Van Damme and even Chuck Norris, they all tried. Seagal just glances on the screen. He's such a lazy actor, but he knows Aikido, you know. And one other thing I always remembered about this movie when I saw it is how after he, you know, I forgot about, he does cut Screwface's head off and smashes the katana blade in between his balls. Another thing that you couldn't get away with nowadays. But I remember when I saw it at the time, I was like, wait a minute, I thought he cut off Screwface's head. And then he pops up and he goes, "You killed my brother, now I wish you was dead." I'm like, oh wow, that is so not intelligent. But because it's marked for death, it's awesome, man. And he dispatches Screwface is supposed to be the master villain, and Seagal just easily kills him. But from what I understand from David Goyer, Seagal used to actually request on sets that he can't be hurt in his movies. So when you watch those older movies, how he dispatches everybody, even the main villain, that was Seagal's request. He used to say, "I'm not going to lose in a fight. My audience doesn't want to see me lose." Seagal's a sleazebag bully, man. And you can even see there's scenes in the movie where he's smacking actors and stuff. He's a bully, man. He's a pretty awful guy. But Marked for Death is the greatest, man. It's the greatest from that era. You got all the typical late 80s, early 90s cheats. And also, you do have the typical moment where a bad guy and a good guy crash through the wall in slow motion. Another thing they don't have in action pictures now. I mean, the smashing through the glass of the wall. Man, I love Marked for Death. You guys, check it out. That's my review of Marked for Death with Steven Seagal. I'm going to be coming with another surprise movie review. I don't know what it's going to be. Stay tuned. Like my video. Subscribe to my channel. Share. And RMJ Movie Reviews will be back again with another movie review. Stay tuned. I'll be back. Yeah.